All right, there we go. Hello. Oh, not only a hello from me, but apparently a hello from my cats. You hear them? That's Jack and Lily back there. And there's not much I can do to control them. Yeah, they're kind of their own individual people. Thanks, Jack. Welcome to the Weekly Spinner Rack. My name is Chris. I'm your host, and this is a show where we talk about comic books, comic book news, comic book reviews. I'm pretty excited to get to the reviews. We'll start with the news in a little bit. They are really wound up. I am sorry. That's just what it is. Yes, Jack. Anyway. I'm excited for the reviews because I still have not made up my mind of what my pick of the week is. You know, like Transformers was exceptional. This was my favorite issue of Blood and Thunder, and I can't wait to get into why. And this was a delightful surprise. Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum by the artist and writer of horror title Ice Cream Man. And that's just some. There's some other great books that came out this week. Quite right to this observation. This show is catastic. Only here for the kiddies. Yes, the comics is window dressing. We are all here for the cats. Look at that. Time for an express sugar-free. Let's watch our figure. Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Thank you, Steve. Thank you very, very much. Hi, Lily. Do you want to come see everybody now? She's making up a game. She's obviously just created a new... It's making her sneeze. What are you doing? I'm sorry that I'm distracted. You are here to watch a show, and I'm just dealing with my cats. I am very amused. Hey, it's my sister. Lovely to have you here. I'm just wondering where this is going. What's the ultimate end game here, Lily? What's how will you win this game? You don't know. She didn't answer. There's literally nothing behind there. It just I had put it up at one point to just sort of create like a divider because we use this downstairs basement as storage, and you know it's just sort of blocking the otherwise there's just a ton of file boxes full of stuff. It just didn't seem very visually interesting. Not that like any of this is really all that aesthetically pleasing. What kind of a show am I doing here? The answer is it's just I do whatever the hell I want. You know what? Like I just came to a point where I was like, you know what? YouTube has been good to me. You folks have been good to me. But at the same time, I'm not, you know, one of these 2 million subscriber channels. I'm just not. And I'm probably not ever going to be that. So I just do whatever the hell I want with YouTube, including this. Like, I could make this prettier. I could talk about nothing but Batman and Spider-Man. I don't care. That doesn't interest me. You know what does interest me? The news this week. So let's get into the news.
We're sitting on top of the story of the century here.
Put an ad on the front page. Cash money for a picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't want to be famous, and I'll make him infamous.
Hi guys, this is April O'Neil from Channel 6 News, and I am here in beautiful New York City.
There we go. I'm going to send a quick text to see if my wife is willing to feed the cats because I am suspecting that's what they want. And it might calm the show down a little bit. We'll see. We'll see. What will we see first? The news. Oh, look. I'm not so sure about this. So I drew this thumbnail this week. That is the Valiant character Bloodshot digging a grave for Valiant. Pretty clever metaphor. Want to make it clear that is an homage to a famous, to me, piece by Joe Kubert. So I do have, it says after Joe Kubert here. And I hope that that's Obvious. It's from a cover to Men of War, and I want to say it's either issue 22 or 23. I just liked it. It's a soldier being forced to dig his own grave, and I have limited time to make a thumbnail for this weekly show, so that's what I did. But it was fun just to doodle. All right. I did give him a big forehead. Kind of intentionally. I don't know. Do I plan on doing a meet and greet near Seattle anytime soon? Just to answer your question, I don't have any plans. This is where I live, but yeah, no plans. Maybe I should at some point. I'll think about it. All right, let's get into the news of the week, starting with that Gunn will apparently direct the next Super Family movie. There's a little bit more to that. So basically this week, the Warner Brothers Discovery investors got to be on a phone call to hear updates from management as to what Warner Brothers Discovery is doing in the near future to, earn them their money. It's an investors call. I hope I didn't over-explain it. CEO, beloved by everybody the world over, David Zaslav. Just a bastion of creativity. Can you sense that there's a little sarcasm in my voice? Anyway, David Zaslav announced specifically that James Gunn is going to write and direct the next movie in the Super Family saga. I don't know exactly what that means, but I have a guess. Gunn has previously told us that he would have a movie that Superman plays a big role in, but it isn't Superman 2. So we still don't know exactly what that is. But I wanted to point this out. So Superman just came to digital, and with it, DC made a 60-minute featurette, like a little documentary behind the scenes making of Superman. At just 2 minutes and 17 seconds in, you can see a glimpse of this, an unused storyboard that clearly shows Supergirl, Superman, and Krypto. And down here in the corner, that's Brainiac. So could we potentially, for instance, get a movie where they're protecting the people of the bottle city of Kandor? That Kryptonian city that Brainiac shrunk. Could that be the next movie? Or could this have been just something that there at one point was going to be in Superman as a quick scene or something like that? I don't know. It gets you thinking. Please meet me at New York Comic-Con on Saturday. I'll give you a Baja Blast. Oh my goodness. That sounds like a good deal to me. I get to say hello to you and I get a free soda out of it. I'm very interested in that. I think Brainiac would make for a fantastic villain. Maybe someday Jim and I will review Superman 3. We've done Superman 4 and we've done Supergirl on this channel. We haven't done Superman 3, which is definitely a possibility. Superman 3 at one point was going to have Brainiac as a villain, and at the last minute it just sort of got changed to generic people working with computers. So who knows? Do you not know this? It's a pretty important piece of Superman lore that Brainiac shrunk an entire Kryptonian city before the planet exploded. And Superman usually has that shrunken city in his possession, but doesn't have the scientific ability to make it go back to full size. So there are sort of other Kryptonians out there. I haven't gotten to see Robert on Ink Pulp, but I did see that he was on Ink Pulp. And there's a good chance I may have him on in the near future. It depends on schedules, but just letting you know, there's a good chance I'll have Robert back on Comic Tropes soon. Anyway, I'm looking forward to Peacemaker Season 2, just thinking of the next thing in the DCU. I hope it's good. I liked Season 1 a lot. As long as I'm talking about DC, let's go into this. DC has started teasing a ton of the stuff that they're putting in their issue of Batman Deadpool. It's pretty cool. Ton of variant covers. More than I honestly felt that I could do justice with, because that would either be a list or I'd be showing you almost 20 images. But they've got a lot of fantastic artists. What I can tell you is who's writing some of the and drawing some of the backups. Scott Snyder, James Tynion, and Joshua Williamson will write. Hayden Sherman on art, John Constantine, and Doctor Strange. I'm interested in that. I'm very interested in that. During the Amalgam run, we got Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate, which makes sense, but Constantine and Doctor Strange are just such opposites. I love that idea. Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo had a great run on Nightwing, obviously. Well, they're doing a Nightwing story with the Laura Kinney version of Wolverine. Not a duo I would have expected. I like the unexpected. Mariko Tamaki and Amanda Conner are doing a Harley Quinn versus Hulk something or other. There's also a cover by Amanda Conner, and it looks like it's Hulk and Harley Quinn in a hot dog eating contest. I hope that's what it is. That's absolutely bizarro. That's hilarious. That's really, really funny. Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, James Tynion is one of the rare times a queer writer has worked on the queer character of Constantine. Huh. These are things that don't always occur to you. Yeah. I'm not Bizarro. I'm Hulk. Winston, nice to see you here. By the way, I think this came out last week, but I just got it. Winston does the design of the interior here on Out of Alcatraz, which is just really classy. Nice credit there. You should be proud. What else do they have? Also unexpected. G. Willow Wilson and Dennis Cohen working on some of their creations. Ms. Marvel and Static. I love that idea. That's so cool. I still want Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti to do a She-Hulk run. Bronze, that is a great idea. They could really do justice to that character. I hadn't considered them for that, but now you've got my imagination going. I would love that. It's not going to happen anytime soon, because we know that Marvel has plans to do basically Planet She-Hulk, where she's in charge of Sakaar or something like that. So that's going to take a little while. I think that this one's, it's either November or December, so it's a little ways out. We've been seeing teases from Marvel for their side of things. Now DC is starting to tease theirs. So Marvel's comes out first and then DC's. Anyway, by the way, Bronze has a great channel talking about comics, comic news, related media and stuff, and he does a live show with Bigby McFly. Sorry, Bigby, I stuttered. And it starts at 8 p.m. This one's starting at 5 p.m., but on Monday night. So if you want even more TV, I'm calling it TV now. That's not accurate at all, because it isn't broadcast that way, but whatever. If you wanted more content about comics, I recommend checking it out. Isn't that a great idea? I feel like that sounds like a great idea. Two really positive, really cool teen heroes. I feel like that's super cool. Sorry, I like it. I'm stuttering. I'm so excited. DC also teased in like a press release that they had this week, announcing all these covers, announcing the backup stories, that the Batman Deadpool story that they're doing, which is written by Grant Morrison, art by Dan Mora, DC teased that it will be a metaphysical car crash between two storytelling philosophies, which to me indicates Morrison may actually be leaning into the fact that Deadpool breaks the fourth wall, Batman, much more structured, rigid, classic comic book style. And maybe we'll get to play on some of the more meta elements of the fact that this is a crossover between companies, between such different characters. I hope so. I think that it would be a lot more interesting to play with the very idea of a crossover and such different characters than to just tell, hey, what if these two people fought some crime? We'll see. Hey, we don't know, John. Not everything's been announced. Maybe Sugar and Spike Meet the Power Pack is coming. Maybe we'll get Angel and the Ape meet what's something obscure for Marvel? We'll just say New Warriors. I don't know. Batman is not too fond of Jokers. They're diametrically opposed with order and chaos. It's so funny too when you think about Batman on that level, that his villain is so chaotic that it pushes Batman into the role of being a force of order. Except Batman is a vigilante. He's working outside the system, right? But because he and Joker are so different, Batman, is pushed to he's working very hand in hand with the police, and he never makes mistakes, or beats up somebody that isn't guilty. It's interesting though. Brute force. Oh my God. There we go. Angel and the Ape meet brute force. Yes, please. We'll get Paul Scheer back. Paul Scheer has written brute force and talked about it. I think that that's what the fans want. I think that's what the fans demand. DC, Marvel, pay the man. Come on. By the way, Paul Scheer, I just want to say, really, really nice guy. Okay. People know him as an actor and a comedian, and he is those things. He's also legit nerdy. And back in the day, before I started YouTube, I did a podcast for many years with my friends. It was about TV. We talked about TV shows. We did interviews and stuff like that. We were on a competition from Earwolf, the shows like Comedy Bang Bang and that. And there were like 10 comedy podcasts, and we were invited to be one of them. And you'd compete. You'd have a challenge each week. You'd engage in that challenge within the context of your show. And then they'd have a panel of guests, like actual actors and comedians and stuff, basically listen. And one of you got cut. And fortunately, we at least weren't the first one or two people cut. We didn't make it that far. But Paul Scheer was really nice and helped us pass one of those weeks. I don't remember which week now because it's going back so many years, but Paul was really nice to my podcast. And he's got a show right now on YouTube that I really recommend that he does with his friend Rob Hubel called Dark Web. And they just look at ridiculous stuff that they've pulled up online, all sorts of crazy videos or products, stuff like that. It's a really funny show, Dark Web. I recommend it. Oh yeah, How Did This Get Made is fantastic. I love Comedy Bang Bang too. Yeah, I just want to say that he's always been nice to me, and I've met him, I guess, just once at New York Comic Con, but he was very kind, and he wrote Brute Force once, which is crazy. And his wife is currently in the movie Weapons, which is a fantastic movie, by the way. All right, that was a lot. That was quite the side story. Oh, yeah. Some of these covers are incredible. Nick Dragotta really emulating some of the, not the exact look of how Mike Zeck drew Punisher, but a little bit of the composition, the low angle. It's really cool. All right. So Marvel has two events about apocalypse happening at the same time. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Why is it even happening? So it's happening because it's the 30th anniversary of Marvel's popular Age of Apocalypse event. It's a fun story. It was cool. So to celebrate, they actually have two separate X-Men events based around Age of Apocalypse. We've got X-Men of the Apocalypse. That's a sequel series by Jeff Loeb and Simone DeMeo. And all of the X titles will be getting renamed and renumbered in sort of a flash forward style thing called Age of Revelation. Okay. I'm seeing double here. 4 apocalypses? I think the Kamala Khan thing leads into one of them, but I can't tell. I can't. Apocalypse. Well, apocalypse isn't Latin. Actually, it might even be from Greek. I'm not sure. So, why is this happening? Well, in his Substack newsletter, the group editor of the X-Men titles, Tom Brevoort, said, the anniversary of Age of Apocalypse was the instigating factor that got us thinking about both projects, but it looked for a while like X-Men of Apocalypse wasn't going to come together in time. This led us to build out Age of Revelation around that same anniversary period. Then, when X-Men of the Apocalypse did wind up happening, we couldn't at that point move Age of Revelation as it spanned too many titles and too many projects. So we're just going to have to count on our readership being smart enough to distinguish one from the other. This is not an impression of any real life person or race. This is a flawless impression of an alien from Star Wars.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are 2 of them?
I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Tom Brevoort and what he's accomplished, but I'm not really feeling the X-Men at all these days, with the one exception of I think Gail Simone has carved out a bit of her own story and like sort of set things in a good way apart, but it keeps getting interrupted by the X-Men crossover events that happen whenever you're in an X title. So it's not my thing. Newt Gunray.
Close the blast door.
It's a lot. That is a lot of apocalypse. Hey, you kids like that Apocalypse movie? You know, with Moon Knight as Apocalypse, looked more like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers movie. Well, here, have a shit ton more. We're going to shove Apocalypse down your throat. We're Marvel. Okay. This does sound cool to me, though. This does sound cool. This next thing. Infernal Hulk. Maybe I'm just a sucker. I don't know. But this sounds cool. So the current team on Hulk, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Nick Klein. They are continuing on the title, but it is renumbering, resetting, whatever you want to call it, rebooting. And it's going to be called the Infernal Hulk. What's the difference? So the premise involves what Hulk has been battling right now, which is the mother of horrors has sent like every monster in the world after Hulk. She wants to possess Hulk's, incredible power and strength and everything. And at the forefront of that is the eldest, her firstborn. Really, really powerful, really, really old, ancient evil. Okay. And apparently the eldest is going to literally tear Hulk apart to like separate Bruce Banner from him. It's supernatural stuff. And they'll take over Hulk's body. So Hulk is definitely going to be a bad guy. And Bruce Banner is going to be left to figure out how to stop him. What? That sounds cool. Johnson promises new and more powerful monsters. That's what you got to do with Hulk. The book hits shelves November 26th. So I don't know exactly where the current run is going, but it will get to this point. But that does feel, if you've been reading it, like a natural evolution. It makes sense that this is where things could go. And I also understand how this is an easy jumping on point at that point. The incredible, immortal, infernal Hulk and friends.
I've got lots of friends.
I like the idea of leaning into Hulk's horror roots. You know, he's sort of a Frankenstein type of creature in a lot of ways, or a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, obviously. There's a bunch of monsters that you can make comparisons to with Hulk. You know, sort of a werewolf of sorts. So there's a lot of that. So I like it when they lean into Hulk's horror roots with either the body horror or have him battle other monsters. I think it works. I think it works quite well. It takes place in a superhero world, but I think it helps it set it apart a little bit. I don't know if that's what's going on or not, but it could be. It works for me. The biggest news, arguably, of the week was the Disney Webtoon partnership. Two very big companies. And they're working together to make more money. Anyway, this week, Disney and Webtoon announced that they're teaming up to bring the comics from things like Disney, Marvel, 20th Century Studios, Alien, Predator, Planet of the Apes, I guess, things like that, and Star Wars, all those brands to Webtoon's vertical scrolling format. Okay, yeah, I get that. Disney said that they're going to start by adapting existing books into the scrolling format, such as the Spider-Man run from 2022 to present, the 2012 Avengers, the 2015 Star Wars, Alien, and Disney as Old as Time, A Twisted Tale. I don't know. It's Beauty and the Beast. The companies said that they're also working on plans to create original content. Anyway, why is it a big deal? Webtoon is a tremendously read format, and it's growing. It's growing. Is it a perfect system? It seems to definitely still have kinks to work out in terms of how to monetize it properly, how to pay the talent properly. But is it something that people are actually reading? No question. Hugely, hugely popular throughout Asia. Very popular here in the States as well, and growing and growing. So, it's a new venue to push a way to read comics. I'm not against that. I don't know what the future will hold, so I like it when a company is willing to try new things. I don't know if this will be a perfect format at all, but I'm down for the idea of trying it. I'm down for the idea of trying it. Christina, welcome. Oh, and Christina, I think you got a for the Comic Book Community Awards this year. I'm pretty sure you did. Yeah, personally, I also really enjoy reading the physical book as well. But I've talked before about how there are a bunch of reasons why I also do enjoy digital. Let me talk about this. So I recently did an episode on comic tropes about a manga that I love, My Hero Academia, but I didn't love the end of it. The only way I could do a review and get the answers I need was by having a subscription to their online system. I mean, it just wasn't realistic for me to take about 42 volumes and scan the pages that I needed. You know what I mean? I could never do a review in a timely way doing it that way. As it was, it took me a tremendously long time to do it digitally, but I could at least grab images that I needed for the review way in a more efficient way. So that's one way I specifically benefit from digital comics. It also, it's less stuff in the house. Some of us don't have huge spaces to just stacking comics, and digital is nice to not have stuff. I will say, though, regarding that episode, I was proud of my little essay about My Hero Academia. And that episode absolutely tanked. Nobody read it, but I think it's the algorithm specifically. Like the YouTube looked at my episode before that, which was an interview episode, doesn't get as much interaction, and I know that. And then they were like, oh, well, his last video only got like a few thousand views. So as soon as this one gets a few thousand views, we are not sharing it with anyone anymore. That is just the way it goes. And it is brutal. It is brutal when you do a lot of work. My hope is that most of my Comic Tropes episodes are evergreen, so it'll find its audience over time. It'll find its audience over time. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Anyway, I've got more news. Sort of related to Marvel. Marvel Art, a $20,000 reward. Let's all cash in. If we all work together, we can split up this $20,000. All right, so what's happened? Albert Moy, if you've been to a big comic convention before, you've definitely seen his table. He's been collecting and selling original comics art since 1984. Always has amazing stuff, no question. One of his prized possessions is what you see right there. The title page from Amazing Spider-Man number 27 by Steve Ditko. Pretty valuable, pretty historically important. Well, it's been stolen. A police report has been filed, and major auction houses have been notified, so they're not going to carry this. And Moy has put up a $20,000 reward for the safe return of his artwork. No questions asked. All you have to do is contact his lawyer. They'll coordinate a way to collect the art. So I hope whoever did it, sort of returns it, because it's too hot. You can't really sell it, at least not publicly. I don't know. I don't know. The only thing you could do is like keep it for yourself. But theft is theft. No, that's the thing. I read a couple articles about this, and none of them talk about how it was stolen, which I suspect is intentional. Like, however it was taken, I think the police want to keep that information from the public because none of them even started to address it. If I had to guess, I bet it happened at a convention, but I could easily be wrong. Well, the art is worth significantly more than that. But if it's not yours, $20,000 just to give it back or have it turned in, that's pretty nice. Holy moly, Jeff, why are you telling us all of this? Call his lawyer. Get that $20,000 for yourself. It's probably what you suspect. If you stole something like that that's one of a kind, you can't sell it at auction or eBay or Mercari or anything like that. You couldn't. You couldn't sell it at a convention, really. You could privately sell it like on the black market, basically. Or you could keep it. But yeah, not great. Yeah, but could you be Steve Ditko? Could you? Exactly. I'd be terrified to put something like that up on my wall while it's stolen, because what if somebody turned me in, All right. Let's talk about what I have in the thumbnail. Boy, did this drive me nuts. I know not everybody's going to be on the same page as me, but I was really disappointed with something Valiant published this week. Before I even talk about my little bullet points of news, I've included the main panel that people found objectionable. Valiant has rebooted their universe. Fine. Bloodshot is in a world full of vampires. That's all you really need to know. You don't need to know who Bloodshot is or anything. He's a superhero, okay? So while he's fighting these vampires, he thinks this to himself, which is supposed to, I guess, I don't know, not be an allegory. But let me read it, okay? There are kids who want to be bitten to become vampires because their favorite influencer says they are one, and parents who force their children into that irreversible change just to feel modern and believing that they'll be thankful for it when they grow up. I don't know any other way to interpret that as, you know, a metaphor for trans kids. And when I say kids, I'm not talking about like a toddler or a little kid, to be clear. I'm talking about teenagers and stuff like that. But people were like fighting me on social media, which I expect. I'm not that offended, but like saying like, it's okay because it's an allegory that, you know, like that's what you do with art. And I'm like, well, what's the allegory here? That we're like comparing a trans person to a vampire? Like that doesn't make it better. And if it's not, you know, supposed to be an allegory, like how else are you supposed to interpret this? Like that's a natural, organic way for somebody to talk about vampires. It doesn't make sense. It's just so transparent and gross. The trans community is such a minuscule proportion of society that the idea of going after them is just really petty and hurt. And I think it's gross. I think it's gross. So I'll recap the news though. So Valiant, whose, you know, distributor is Alien Books, they relaunched Bloodshot. That's the first in their planned line-wide Valiant Beyond universe. That's fine. So it's written by Mauro Mantella. Remember that name. Artist Fernando Hines Furukawa. And this panel is the one that got people talking online, especially if you go to a place like Twitter. Valiant responded really fast. I guess that's good, but their response doesn't make sense to me. They said that the line was not intended to offend. They do understand how it can. They said it happened because, quote, the original line was written by an Argentinian creator. I think you'd say Argentine, right? Not Argentinian. I could be wrong there. Creator, and was unfortunately a case of nuance being lost in translation. And they promised to edit it for future digital releases and reprints and have stronger editorial oversight. You don't need stronger editorial oversight. You just need an editor who's actually paying attention. How does this get done? Like, this went through a lot of steps and people knew exactly what it was. Come on. They just didn't know that it was going to get this kind of a response, which is overall a negative response. People don't like it. People at the comic book store, I picked it up just to like look at it because the news was breaking the same day. And I'm looking at it, and like the shop owner that I was at was going like, oh, you've heard about this? And I was like, yeah, it doesn't sound good. He's like, it's terrible. And, his job is to sell the book, but he was grossed out too. But here's the thing. The writer, Mantella, he's worked as a translator. So this whole lost in translation thing, I don't get. And he's posted, apparently, lots of really far right-wing memes, like this one that I show down here, where like this corporate bigwig has a trans person on a leash, and it's versus like, a traditional family, I suppose is what this is meant to represent. As well as things like, people are sheep because they wore masks during the COVID breakout, things like that. So it doesn't pass my sniff test. I think everybody knew exactly what was going on. Exactly what was going on. I can't think of a worse way to have started it. Like it's a lot. The only thing I can say is like Valiant probably could have flown under the radar these days. And this has probably alerted people that Valiant is around and publishing some of their superhero books, but nah, this ain't it. So exactly. I don't know. It's like, if you're going to tell us that as the excuse that there was like, you know what, give us more information. Show us what the original, Spanish was and what the translation became and what was actually meant. Show me your work there. I don't believe it. Yeah, seems like it is pretty thinly veiled bigotry. I agree. So I wasn't impressed. You know, I definitely know trans people. I have trans people in my family. I don't think that there's anything bad or wrong with them. So as far as where I stand, you know, I basically say fuck this. It's pretty horrible. I know that will make me very clearly on, you know, one side of the political spectrum, but I've never tried to really hide that. I don't talk about politics all the time because I'm here to talk about storytelling and find ways where art can bring us together. I really am. But I found this really gross. Anyway, and by the way, I didn't even include within this article the dozens of professionals who have actually even worked on Bloodshot. Somebody like Dennis Camp, right? Currently writes The Ultimates, and Absolute Martian Manhunter and stuff. He wrote Bloodshot right before this, and he said Bloodshot is the kind of guy who would jump into a bullet fire to protect trans kids. So, you know, he would know better than me. He would know better than me. Yeah, pretty big mistake. And it'll be interesting to see if this hurts them. It will. I think that the majority of people that would be reading superhero comics can understand exactly what they're reading and wouldn't like it, the majority. So I think it's a mistake, even if we boil it down to like let the market decide. I think as a business decision, yeah, we'll see. So I'll try to get the palette right now with a very different bit of news, a little whimsical and silly in a horror branch, but we've Spawn meets Santa that I want to talk about because this really amused. Oh, let me acknowledge this. I just want to thank you for calling this BS out. He's talking about a previous news story. Thanks, Chris. We don't need to be trans to have empathy. Exactly. Thank you. Appreciate the support. Thanks for the kind words. So, what do we have here for Spawn meets Santa? McFarlane is going to publish a 2-part story with Santa and Spawn on November 26th is where it starts. Here's the paragraph to explain what it's about. Santa gives presents to good kids and a stocking full of coal to the bad ones. But what happens when one disturbed child takes offense to Santa's gift of coal and makes it his life's mission to torment jolly old Saint Nick for the rest of his life? Sam and Twitch discover the bodies, but only Spawn can put an end to it. It's by writers Chris Killian and Andrew Sanders and artist Thomas Nachlik, I'm guessing. I'm sorry. By the way, Chris Killian writes for, I want to say, comicbook.com. I think he's one of the, so that's a cool move. Oh, geez. I don't need that kind of bigotry. I'm sorry. I'm gonna ban somebody. I don't like doing that. But anyway, let's just be nice to each other. Let's just be nice. All right. What else? Oh, I thought that I had more of that. But yeah, so it's by somebody who does a lot of interviews and writing for comics and is getting a shot at making a fun comic. Good luck to them. Good luck. I think it's a fun concept too. Loading up on some caffeine. Let's keep going. Kirkman's new book gets a teaser. I'll play that here while I talk about the news stuff. So, in promoting Skinbreaker, Robert Kirkman told Forbes this week that his primary inspiration was Mad Max Fury Road. I sort of get that, I think. I sort of get that idea. Well, let's see. He had this to say about the artist, David Finch. I met David briefly when we were both working at Marvel and was a fan of his work going back to the early 1990s. So the idea of working with him is something I was very excited about. I wanted to do a visually centric idea that would be worthy of him and that he would enjoy drawing, because I figure if I enjoy writing it and he enjoys drawing it, then the reader's going to enjoy reading it. I hope that's true. I think this looks like some of the most detailed work I've seen David Finch draw, which is definitely saying something. I'm hopeful. Dude, just to be clear, Kirkman also has a hand in, it's written by Benito Cereno, but has a hand in the concept and the direction for Blood and Thunder, which is a good book. And now he's going to be writing Transformers in 2 months. So how many is he currently doing? I mean, he's writing, well, hold on, I knocked down my microphone. It's going to be Void Rivals, Transformers, Skinbreaker, and Battle Beast. But of those, Skinbreaker is an 8-issue run, so that's not an ongoing. Yeah, I'm not surprised that he wrote this a while back. There's a bunch of projects that he's had in the works for quite a while. Blood and Thunder, they're at issue, like they've already drawn up to something like issue 30 or something like that. It's wild. Oh, appreciate that, Bronze. Thanks for the support, buddy. Appreciate you. You know who should buy Valiant? Is the people that own the Gold Key stuff, which I think is DreamWorks. Because Gold Key had Solar, Man of the Atom, Turok, Dinosaur Hunter, I want to say Magnus Robot Fighter, and at least one or two more that were part of that original Valiant run in the 90s. Some of those were licensed characters from Gold Key, and some of them were original. So I think that's who should buy up these new ones. Like, unite the version of Valiant that everybody has in their head. Stepan, let's see. Looks good. Finch is usually crazy detailed, so it will be an eye candy of a book. And you know what? That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, it could be a lot of fun. Could be really, really good. I'm sure it will be, but I'm biased. I like Robert's stuff. I like his plots. I like his big ideas. And he does go in with like an idea beyond just like, this is a story I want to tell. He usually is very specifically working with artists that he wants to work with and trying to write for them. That's my understanding. So this is 8 issues starting September 24th. I'm looking forward to it. What else do I have? IDW is going to distribute a YouTuber's comic. And I had never heard of this YouTuber before. And then I saw his subscriber count. And it took me about a week to pick my jaw up from how low it had dropped. It was crazy. This is bonkers. So IDW announced they are the exclusive distributor for YouTuber CoryxKenshin's action horror manga series Monsters We Make Volume 1. I think there's at least 3 volumes of it. It's coming to North American stores and online retailers October 28th. Cory has, listen to this, 22.7 million subscribers. Apparently he talks about horror, games, entertainment. I was like, 22.7? It's a big deal when people are between 2 to 6 million. And this is so big. I'd never heard of this YouTuber before somehow. But that is humongous. At least some of you must know this channel with that many subscribers. Oh, really? I just never heard of him. I guess he's got something going on. I don't know. He's been an OG. Got it. Yeah, I don't know how to track all that back. So anyway, I've got a little bit more about this. The comic follows Jabari Booker going to New Eden Academy to study music and finding monsters and corruption in the school. All I can say is, yeah, it's created by him. Obviously, there's a writer and artist that's actually making it and everything. But man, can you imagine? Like, this has to be a success just based on the sheer number of people aware of his work. So I've heard of like YouTubers making comics before. Who else has done one? Who's got that channel? Penguins. Moist Critical. I think he made a comic. That's a YouTuber. Who else is a YouTuber that's made a comic? I don't know. I should do one. I'll make one. Yeah. I'm going to talk about some more IDW stuff. Oh, look at that. He's already sold over $2 million worth directly, both physical and digital. That's insanely popular. Swaggle House made a comic. Very cool. Meat Canyon made a comic? I didn't know that. I've watched a bunch of Papa Meat and some Meat Canyon. I haven't seen that. That's true. As a 10-year-old, I made a 60-page comic about Transformers. Ooh, it was so crazy. Ernie from Blurred Without Fear is working on his comic. That's awesome. Yeah, that's true, but I think that there are some differences. Like, they were already comic creators that then started making YouTube. There's all sorts of comic creators that have done a little YouTube, or YouTubers that have done maybe a little comics, but I'm talking about like already a well-established big YouTube channel dipping their toe and making a full comic. That's sort of what I was thinking of. Yeah, Felicia Day, what was that? What was her web series? I loved that thing, but it's been so many years. Oh, what was her show about, like all the people that would play an online MMO together? The something. Yeah, Comic Tom. That's right. Comic Tom did just do a comic. What was it, like The Countdown or something? I think it was called The Guild. The Guild was Felicia Day. And I think Comic Tom did Countdown. Oh, that's true. Ripaverse. Crashdown. Geez, sorry, Tom. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, a YouTuber co-wrote Radiant Pink. Very good point. So I guess hey, it's only natural as, YouTube becomes a more and more established piece of, media, that there would be crossovers. Wait, did Jim Rugg do some stuff on the Guild? And anyway, yeah, you guys have lots of good examples. Let me talk about another IDW thing. IDW is partnered with Whatnot. So they've got a live show on Saturdays at 1 p.m., at least my time, Pacific. Yeah. It's going to be a weekly live show at this point, co-hosted by IDW's specialty sales manager, Ryan Balcom, and sales associate, April Vendetti. IDW says it's going to offer comics, merch, and exclusives for a lot of their titles. Godzilla, Ninja Turtles, Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, all their IDW dark stuff. Yeah, I haven't played around with Whatnot a whole lot. I mean, I'm aware of it, and I'm glad that there are artists that can directly benefit. Like, I know Ryan Otley will do the occasional Whatnot thing where he'll auction off his artwork, and I feel like more power to him, that he can cut out a lot of middleman stuff there. I think that that's cool for that. When it's offering, just like exclusive covers and stuff, it's just not what I'm into, so I don't follow a whole lot of that. But yeah. Comic Tropes, the comic, write it. Picard style. I've got a bunch of stuff that I could do. I just need a little more time. I work every day. Mike Mayhew does a stream on Whatnot. That's cool. Yeah, that's the part that like bums me out a little. I will admit that, right. Some people are really just flipping stuff. But I like it when it's original art or a remarked cover or something like that. That's not easily something you can just flip. That feels like it's usually the person that wants it getting it. I don't know. It's a big move for IDW anyway, because Whatnot is definitely a big platform and it's growing. Amazon shared some images from their upcoming prequel to The Boys. So we've got costume looks at Jensen Ackles returning as Soldier Boy. We've got other World War II era characters: Bombsight, Torpedo, Private Angel. Definitely reminiscent, though, of actual pulp magazine heroes and early 30s, 40s comics. It's a twisted murder mystery about the origins of Vought. That's the company that made the chemical that gives people superpowers. In the 1950s, the early exploits of Soldier Boy and the diabolical maneuvers of a soup known to fans as Stormfront, who was then going by the name Clara Vought. She was in season, was it 3 of The Boys, or season 2? I can't quite remember. Chris, listen to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I've listened to that before. I couldn't sing it for you right now, but yeah. They are actually doing this. Season 2. Yeah, I can't wait to see Criminal. That's the one I'm also like, I like The Boys. I'm curious about season 2 of Gen V. I like Gen V, okay? The show is going into production next month. So I think it'll probably just be like a short 1-season thing. I don't see this as being an ongoing thing. But then again, who knows? When you're popular, they'll make more. Archie is making some changes to its digests. So Heidi McDonald at The Beat really broke this story. Archie Comics is in the process of phasing out their digests that they put out on the newsstands. You know, you still sometimes can see this stuff at the grocery store or at least Barnes and Noble, you know, places like that. Sometimes even just actual newsstands that sell magazines and newspapers if you live in the city. They've been doing their digests for over 50 years. Oh, they absolutely still make them. But not for much longer, I don't think. The short version, and if you want to read it in detail, 2 big articles are on Comics Beat right now. But the short version is that Archie is the only comic book publisher that's still selling any of their comics to the newsstand market. Everybody else is direct market comic book stores. But in the last few years, they've been scaling back their offerings. Like last year, I'm paraphrasing some of the articles stuff, but last year they did like 36 digests, and this year they were planning to do like 24, but they haven't even done what they should be at to get 24 out this year. They've been scaling it back. Most recently, they changed solicitations from 3 upcoming digests to just 1 Halloween offering. So they cut 2 of their planned digests. Basically, the space at grocery stores, that impulse item area near the checkout, that is a premium. You give the store a bigger chunk of your sales for anything you're selling there, whether it's candy bars and Tic Tacs or magazines. It seems that there are other magazines that are just more likely to generate a profit than the comic, which is down to 86 pages for $9.99, which isn't a bad value at all, but they used to be like over 2 times that big for the same price. They've been like cutting down the pages over the years. And yeah. So I'm a little bummed because I would, as a kid, every once in a while get one of those. Jean, my sister, would get one of those every once in a while. It's one of the comics that my wife, Chrissy, enjoys. She likes, it's a, I don't think that this character ever really had their own ongoing title, but that you could find it in the digests, Lil Jinx. Chrissy likes Lil Jinx. I like Archie. I have a lot of fondness for Archie. You can count on Archie to be pretty funny. And yeah. So there's a reason for that. They might not be anymore, but for a while, recently, Archie was being distributed by the magazine distributor that's owned by the National Enquirer. I think that they now have a new distributor for the newsstands, and that might be part of why they're phasing themselves out. It is kind of the end of an era. You used to be able to just find comics anywhere you went. Not so much anymore. I got digests of things like Transformers from Marvel, and they were oversized, but I got digests of Ninja Turtles. We got some Archie digests. These were just things that would be at like the grocery store or the convenience store. And it was an easy way to sort of get a bunch of comics for like a good price. And that was an easy entry point into understanding them as a kid. Yeah. Image is doing some digest format reprints now. I think that they tend to call those more the compact comics. And I've got some news items about that, because I think that size is still popular, like sort of a manga size for, we could call those digests. Yeah. This is a big piece of news. Oh my God. Totally different. But 17 artists right now are suing Cadence Comic Art. Have you guys, any of you out there, been to, medium to big comic conventions in the last few years? If so, you'd probably notice that when you go to Artist Alley, there tend to be tables of artists and sometimes writers that will have branding on their pop-up banners, maybe like comic sketch art and things like that. Like there are art dealers that like group them together, just like book the table so that they can like have several people that they represent in a row. Well, one of those is Cadence Comic Art, but this is not good. So yeah, they're an original art dealer for comics. Last February, not this February, last February, we'd heard of a bunch of artists that had dropped them as their representation. Nobody said exactly why, but a lot of artists all of a sudden over the course of a couple days were like, I'm no longer represented by Cadence. If you want my art, contact me, or they're moving to such and such. Big names too, big names. Well, this week, a group of 17 artists filed a lawsuit alleging fraud. Becky Cloonan is listed first in the court filings, but some of the other names in there are pretty big names. Mahmoud Asrar, Tyler Crook, Wes Craig, Jenny Frisson, Raphael Albuquerque, Jill Thompson, Joelle Jones, a bunch more. Just a lot of names, 17. So what's the fraud? Well, Bleeding Cool summarized it in a way that I think makes sense. They said that the complaint filed earlier this month in the Southern District of New York alleges, quote, egregious misconduct and, quote, reprehensible conduct, and that Cadence Comic Art systematically deceived and defrauded the artists out of substantial sums of money, and that they flagrantly, I almost got that word out, flagrantly violated their fiduciary and statutory obligations under New York's Arts and Cultural Affairs law. The artists allege that they were defrauded hundreds of thousands of dollars in unreported sales. A lot more to this story if you want to dig in. There's several comic book news sites that have more details. You could also read the court filings. We are talking close to like $500,000 in unreported sales. So it came out fast, came out like that a bunch of artists figured out the same thing, and all at once they sort of walked away. So yeah, there's allegations of stuff being sold at art galleries and stuff that just wasn't reported, or at least the numbers weren't reported. Just brutal. It's really unfortunate. Your reputation is everything in this business, and it's not a huge business. People know people, and people gossip. People talk about stuff. So not good. There are still a bunch of big artists with Cadence, but this is not going to help their reputation. Not at all. Got two more pieces of news I want to address. One is jumping back to, I should have had this right after the Archie Digest, really. But Valiant is launching compact editions. So they're following what DC and Marvel are both doing. into making compact trade paperbacks. They're calling this line Vantage. Okay. Initial offerings include their books Money Shot, These Savage Shores, Witch Blood. About 10 issues per trade. Pretty big. $15.99. Good price these days, right? 10 issues for $15.99. And that's going to start coming out in December. Oh, shoot. You're right. Ha! I copied something for the format for this. I meant Vault. Oh, geez. Here, watch this. This is how amazing I am. On the fly, I'll do this. Look at that. What are you talking about? I thought it was Vault. It clearly says Vault right there. I don't make mistakes. $15 for 10 issues is too high? If you got those individually, that would be about $40. That feels like a really good deal to me. You like normal size? I really like the compact editions. Marvel's compact editions are sort of halfway between comic book size and manga size. I don't have one here, but theirs are sort of halfway between. DC's are closer to standard manga size. I like that a little bit more. But yeah, I think it's just the way. Yeah, I think it's business, and if this would be a good way, like the digests were, for new readers to discover this stuff as compared to people that are already reading it. Because if you can get a big collection for less money than the individual issues, that's a fantastic entry point. Great question, Randy. And that was my concern. I wish I had it here, but I've got one of the DC compact comics. I don't have it here for Green Lantern, Far Sector. And no, lettering is totally legible. I was concerned about that too. I was like, if they're shrinking everything, is the lettering going to become too small? No. I also think that if it did, they'd probably be able to re-letter it. They'd probably be able to figure that out. But anyway, no, it's totally legible in my opinion. And I'm somebody that now has transition or progressives. Progressives, that's what it's called. So that, like, for reading something up close, I just look down. These are basically bifocals. Yeah, you would think that maybe it would get too small, but it really, I don't think does. And honestly, these days, like the size of like some of the fonts we'll read on our phones, like it's bigger than that. So what else we got? Oh, I was worried about that with my own books, but the smaller print lettering is shockingly easy to read. You know what I think some of it is honestly just modern printing techniques. Very precise. It's not muddy. I think some of us still think of the somewhat muddy printing of comics throughout the 80s and into the 90s. But it's just so precise now. It's just so precise. I forget like the full run of what Marvel's done so far for their compact. I know that one of them is one I'd recommend, the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four run with Dale Eaglesham on art. That one has been collected into a compact comic, and yeah, good value. That's me, man. All right, last thing I want to mention, and maybe I'll try to do this a little more often, just things that are on the horizon that I'm excited for. And there's two that I wanted to put on people's radar. There's not really a news item to go with this, just new things or upcoming things that I think look cool. One is Drome by Jesse Lonergan, who I talked about a couple weeks ago, did a short story in Godzilla that I loved. I've also talked about him on the show because I got his self-published comic Faster, which was really cool. But now he's got this humongous book coming out, Drome. 320-page story, folks. It's about a demigoddess working to guide humanity towards peace versus chaos. That comes out tomorrow. So you could get that on Amazon or whatever place you get your comics. Ideally, you get it at your comic book store if possible. But we're going from compact comics to really, really big comic. Huge epic that he's been working on apparently for a long time. Really unique artist. Also coming up, Super Ego by Jason Latour. What's that? That's 176 pages, still quite big, of short comics by the guy behind Spider-Gwen, Southern Bastards. One of the examples here is Dr. Damned, his supernatural character. That's on Kickstarter. Super Ego by Jason Latour is on Kickstarter. I supported it. I really like his storytelling. I think that I wanted to put both of these on people's radar. These are two things that I'm looking forward to reading in the near future. So yeah, just thought I'd put those in front of people. What next? I guess we'll talk about the comics that came out this week. I think that makes sense. Let me just get my camera ready, and we'll do some reviews. Let me get this closed. Hello. And we'll switch it over to reviews.
All right, gentlemen, let's review.
I think I've reviewed about as much as I can.
Brilliant. Yep. Really proud of that. Okay. Get my Mountain Dew out of the way and focus up on what we've got here. I'm going to just get the focus locked in on that. I think that's better. And we're good. Thank you. Appreciate your patience while I always set that up. Oh, that wasn't on my radar, but I'm always interested in Tom Scioli's work. Xanadax, huh? Okay, I'll keep my eye out for that. Okay, I'll try to do that then. Like just stuff that I'm personally excited about. It's sort of like a pre-recommendation. If there's stuff like that, I'll put that out there. Yeah, I know. Maybe I will do that. Maybe I'll give myself a little media clip so that I can set up my camera each week and you don't have to see me doing that. I'll think about that. I just was creating something silly and short. Let's talk about Blood and Thunder first. So this is by Benito Cereno with input from Robert Kirkman. Art by regular in the channel, E.J. Sue. And issue 4 is a fantastic issue to read if you haven't read any yet, because, boy, this is brave, but it does not feature the main character. It just tells us a complete side story that is setting stuff up that will then factor into the ongoing story. It's a great story. It takes place on an alien planet, and the humans there have colonized and basically subjugated the native inhabitants. They've changed the name of the planet and their people, and they make them like footmen and butlers and maids and stuff like that. And they're not like outwardly, say, racist towards them, but there is a lot of casual disrespect at best. And this one doctor has heard about all these thefts of valuable books from his wealthy friends. And in looking into it, he comes across these people, these aliens, idea of a supernatural creature that's doing it. And it basically sounds like a vampire. And they don't know, nobody gives it credence. They don't believe that could be a real thing. But it probably is real. And it's just a fascinating side story that utterly captivated me. I blasted through this story, and I just found that sort of attitude of colonization really interesting to see represented in something. This is how you do allegory. You create like a completely fictional character. You don't refer to anything super specific. And I don't know, it's really interesting because you're learning new mythology while learning the plot and getting the characters and stuff. There's just so much that's mixed together well in this. Yeah, the art is fantastic. I mean, look at the detail EJ Su will put in an establishing shot. I don't know that you can necessarily see it. Here, maybe I'll zoom in like this. Is that? It's really, really sharp is all I can say. It's a huge change of pace. And I was shocked by it that, like, you know, Bloodso wasn't in this, but I found it interesting. So, folks, all I can say is it's a great issue. If you like sci-fi, I recommend picking it up. Recommend it strongly. Oh, look at this. Thanks for the hours of entertainment you've brought so many of us. Your passion for the medium bleeds through every time. It's a bright spot on my Mondays. That's very, very kind of you. That's very generous. I'm flattered. Thank you. I have fun doing this. I love talking about comics. I think it's just one of the most versatile and dynamic storytelling mediums out there. It gives you something visceral, and it lets you put so much of your own imagination into it that I think it can be more impactful than anything else. That's me, okay? I enjoy reading comics more than I enjoy TV or movies, which I love, but are much more passive. And I love reading books and novels, and of all kinds, you know, nonfiction, sci-fi, mystery, I don't know, but I like it all. But I love getting to see beautiful art while I'm reading a story. I love it. There's so many reasons I could go on and on. I love comics, so thank you very much for the kind words, but trust me, I love talking about it. They are crushing it, and I really hope a lot of people discover it so that it keeps going, because they've made a lot of issues already. I think it's a good comic. I really do. Out of Alcatraz wrapped up. So I want to be careful about how much of this I show, because Out of Alcatraz is a crime book more than a mystery, but obviously mystery is an important component of a crime story. And if you don't know, it presupposes that the people that escaped from Alcatraz in the 60s didn't drown in the bay. And what happens to them when they're basically off the books, right? All I can say is that they are still being chased by a pair of law enforcement officials. And then this thing takes some really crazy twists and turns with loyalties and alliances. And there is a big twist to the very end of where everything's going. It's not something you could have predicted. I don't want to give away too much, but I do want to show you at least a little bit of how beautiful the artwork is. Let me see if I can just sort of find a really pretty image or something like that. You know, this is good storytelling beyond just being a beautiful individual panel. Tyler Crook is really special artist, you know, obviously, you know, painted. It's watercolor, I think gouache. Boy, it really is a cool book. I was impressed. I was impressed. I never quite knew where it was going. I didn't know who, if any of these criminals would survive, whether they really deserved to or not. And yeah, it went in some unexpected directions. There were 3 people that got off of Alcatraz, or got out of Alcatraz, but then they never found them. So we do assume that they drowned in the San Francisco Bay. This also introduces, on top of those 3 characters, a lady that like won't give up her real name and is somehow related to a plot to get them to escape, as well as 2 law enforcement officials. So there's basically 6 important characters, and this has all of them. Wow, it's really, really cool. Welcome to the Rock. Perfect impression. You're welcome. This is Superman the Kryptonite Spectrum, which is a book that introduces new variations of Kryptonite, and it is by the team that makes Ice Cream Man. So you would expect that maybe it would be a book that's pure horror or something like that, even if it's maybe existential type horror. And to a degree, it is scary. But the book that I found this closest to might actually be All-Star Superman. Not saying that it covers everything that All-Star Superman does, but it puts Superman in the role of something that he did in the Silver Age a lot, a scientist and an archaeologist. Let me just address this real quick. What's up with even more kryptonite that affects Superman just now introduced? How much can one rock impact one species? You know, to a degree, they actually address some of that. But anyway. Yeah, it feels like All-Star Superman to you too? Superman, before the first live-action movie in 1978, would go to his Fortress of Solitude, and he did not have complete access to his Kryptonian history before that movie. You know, in the movie, he throws a shard of something or other, and it creates this crystalline structure, and there's holograms of his dead parents to tell him about Kryptonian knowledge and heritage. And that's basically been a part of Superman ever since. That was not always the way it was in the comics. No, in the comics, even though there was lots of Kryptonian stuff like the Bottle City of Kandor, Krypto, Supergirl, and so on, Superman didn't have that history. And he was always curious about his history. So he would have stories where he's always going into space and finding like this lost relic from Krypton that was flying through space. And he'd learn a little something, you know, about his history. And if you add it all up, sure, it becomes preposterous. But individually, they were really fun stories because he was always trying to figure out a little bit more about his people. And that made him a bit of an archaeologist. And he would make his own technology at the Fortress of Solitude, like his robots. So it was very different in that regard. And in this, you know, he's at his fortress with his robots, and he's gone into space, and he's harvested some kryptonite, and he wants to know what it does. And he gets Batman, his best friend, to help him. And Batman's like, no, this is a terrible idea. Kryptonite can kill you, if not worse. He's like, yeah, but here's the thing. Superman's like, what if, you know, we destroy this kryptonite, but then there's more of it out there, and somebody like Lex Luthor gets a hold of it, and we don't know what it does. It's better if we, like, under controlled circumstances, try to figure out what this stuff does. Okay? And Luthor, I always say Luthor is very aware of this, but Superman got the drop on it and got it first. The first kryptonite that he's exposed to is purple kryptonite, which changes the way he perceives time. So this becomes a very non-linear story. In fact, Batman's doing a little experiment here, and he's like, you know, tell me how this calendar looks. And if we're reading, it goes 2/1/17/30/25/10. And in fact, there's a battle in this while he's being affected, and all of these panels are told non-sequentially. And we can understand, we can put together the order it should be in, actually, which is really fun. But Superman is obviously very disoriented. So it's interesting. On one level, we're just having fun, right? To see what the kryptonite does. On another, it's legit scary what this does to him. And on yet another, it's fun to see Superman engage in scientific pursuits because he has sci-fi origins. His parents were scientists, and sometimes that gets lost. You know, he's just a superhero. Maybe he's, you know, there's so many different things you can explore about Superman. And I think that's part of why he's still going strong, you know, almost 90 years in. He can be a reporter. He can be, a romantic lead. He can be a father. He can be a team leader. He can go on weird science-y adventures. He can protect, you know, his city from bank robbers. There's all sorts of stuff. But that sort of need to know his own history and just have to be an archaeologist and be a scientist to keep the world safe from what might come. Those are really interesting elements that don't always get explored. Green Kryptonite has had positive benefits. Actually, I think the answer is yes in some deeply weird Kryptonite stories, because it does something different to Bizarro, and I forget what. I think green Kryptonite is good for Bizarro, and blue Kryptonite hurts Bizarro. It's hard to remember. There's a lot of different kinds. There are. The modern continuities ever since Crisis on Infinite Earths don't deal with too much Kryptonite beyond some green, sometimes red. The other's pretty damn rare. But this is, to be clear, a Black Label book, so technically in its own continuity, doesn't really matter what you know about Superman outside of this. You probably know what you need to know. And it's a different side of Superman than we typically get to see, and that's what reminded me of All-Star Superman. It's well executed. It really is. It's very different. It's very different, and that blows me away that we have a character that has been around that long that is still getting interpreted in different ways. Very cool. I think maybe blue takes powers away from Bizarro and gold takes away powers from Superman. There's something like that, but things have different effects on Bizarro Superman. So I was just saying, like, I think that there are examples of green Kryptonite doing something positive. Superman has also had stories where he's eventually become immune to Kryptonite. Before Crisis, Superman had been immune to Kryptonite for quite a long time. They decided to do away with that weakness. Good for them, you know? Yeah, I know gold takes... I'm trying to remember if blue does for Bizarro. I forget what blue does. To be honest, the most important ones are green, and after that, and it's quite a ways after that, red. After that, you get a bunch of other colors that do weird things. Really good issue, folks. Well, here we are already. Second to last issue of Daniel Warren Johnson's era on Transformers. He built out a new continuity, referencing some of the more popular ideas from different elements of Transformers fiction in the past, but primarily influenced by Generation 1 cartoon. And by the way, I really shouldn't discount how great Jorge Corona has been as the artist for the second half of this run. Really, really good. Beautiful, really. We're building up to a final showdown between all of the Autobots and all of the Decepticons. It's built up to this, but Prime is out of commission. Optimus Prime, the leader, is out of commission. And yeah, here, he's not working. And he's inside the matrix of leadership. I don't want to give too much away. He's in there trying to sort of find himself in his way. It's a beautiful issue, like a bunch of humans giving tributes to Superman, to Optimus Prime. Some similarities there about how he saved them, and a really lovely moment where Ultra Magnus, who has been a character severely traumatized by the war and being tortured, he's sort of making a small rebound here, and he talks about how, look, I can't be Optimus Prime. I can't be a great leader like he was. But there's one thing I can do. I can die. And he's like, and if I'm going to die, I'm going to do it, you know, like protecting the people that Optimus would protect. And I'm going to like do it in battle. I'm ready to face my fears. And even though he thinks it's not much of a motivational speech, because I'm paraphrasing, it's quite a good speech. And it does rally the Autobots around him. And yeah, we just start like a huge epic battle. There are going to be some twists to what happens with these characters, but the Autobots are pretty outnumbered. Optimus Prime has sort of a functioning arm, but RC and Superion have both lost their arms. just something that happens, I guess, if you're a robot. And while the Decepticons squabble, Megatron is definitely whips them into shape. And yeah, like what's cool is that we do get these moments with the human characters because, all right, say we lose one or two of these like dozens of robots. Like, is that going to emotionally impact us? Well, it might if we care about certain ones, but it's a stretch. But we can care about people that we can relate to. And this battle is taking place in Chicago. And we see what the effects could be and what the stakes are. Dude, Ultra Magnus looks great in this. I hope it doesn't lose steam either. I think it will have a bit of a reset, but it's gorgeous. It really is. What else can I say about it? It's good. It's beyond good. This has reignited my love of Transformers. I liked Transformers so much as a kid. I done an episode before about my crazy comic that I made when I was 10 years old. 60-page comic book about Transformers that I made when I was 10. Who does that? A kid who just can't get enough Transformers for some reason. But as an adult, I did sort of go away from it. I didn't continue to collect the toys or anything as an adult, and didn't watch any of the follow-up cartoons from the one I grew up with. I saw the movies, didn't really love them, to be honest. I like Bumblebee. But I didn't really like the movies too much. But now I'm reading this, and it's just reignited my passion for Transformers. It can be so cool. You know, I went ahead and got this third-party Optimus Prime with Megatron's arm that's specifically based on what Daniel Warren Johnson did in his comic here. This does fully transform, but it's a super complex thing to do. His chest opens and he's got the Matrix of Leadership in here. Super posable. You can pose it any which way. This is a great little figure. I'm surprised at how much I like it again. And I realize there's a lot of potential with Transformers. You know who deserves a lot of credit? Jim Shooter. You know, the toys existed, and the toys are great. The idea themselves and the execution was really good early on. But the idea of coming up with the story, because it could have been anything, but coming up with the story of that they are aliens and that they've been in a war for thousands of generations and that comes to Earth and they're looking for energy and stuff like that. That whole premise was Jim Shooter. It's pretty impressive. Are you getting... No, I can't justify spending the money on something like that. I don't have that kind of money to just have fun with those toys. They look great. Those voice-activated, self-transforming, like Prime and Megatron, and I think that Grimlock one looks incredible. But this has been a great book, folks. If you don't know Transformers, just to be clear, it's its own thing. Like, yes, this is issue 23, but they have trade paperbacks so that you can get caught up really fast. And it just starts from scratch. It's its own thing. It's fantastic. It's surprisingly emotionally relevant. I have a lot of respect for Jim Shooter, just to be clear. I met him several times before he passed away and had some great conversations with him about, he just knew so much about the industry. He had his flaws, he did, and but he knew a lot about comics history, and I respect that. Let's see. How would you sell a gently used Transformer? Low mileage, only one previous owner. Well, I'd ask the customer, what they're looking for in a Transformer, and then I'd match them with the right one. Yeah, it's something special. It really is. The other books I read this week, boy, there were a lot of good books, to be honest. Yeah, honestly, every single book I read this week, I do recommend. There wasn't one where I was like, I'm done with this. There's the final issue of Bug Wars, which went in some surprising directions, and just Mahmoud Asrar is crushing it in this one. All sorts of really cool, epic fight scenes. Yeah, some of this stuff is incredible, the detail. Basically, in this, a teenager can shrink down, and there's an amulet that like powers him up to and he's a super barbarian. It's wish fulfillment stuff. I highly recommend Jason Aaron's Scrooge book. Oh, really? Second best interpretation of the character after Don Rosa. Second best, like you put it above Carl Barks? Holy moly, macaroni. Anyway, 6 issues, and this wraps it up in a very satisfying way. All sorts of really cool, badass stuff happens in this. So if you like sort of sword and sorcery type books, you know, Conan and that, you probably enjoy Bug Wars. It's so metal. That's what someone would like out of it. What do I get out of this? I think I mostly just enjoy that it made me feel nostalgic for wish fulfillment type power. But it does have a very interesting world building. It treats each bug as its own clan, and they have their own personalities and their own governments and stuff. You know, the way an ant works versus a honeybee is completely different. Yeah, dense is an interesting word. Sorry that my light keeps flaring up. I don't know what to say about that. The art is incredible, though. The feels like Game of Thrones. Maybe not quite as literary, I'd say, but it definitely aspires to something more than just dumb beat 'em ups. There is a story here, but barbarian stories can frequently have good stuff. I think like a lot of Conan books have great stories. I think Helen of Windhorn riffed on some Conan elements and had lots of big fights and stuff, and was like just the best book last year. I don't, there's not enough time to quite get into that idea, although there could be sequels to this. I think that there could be, if people liked it enough. Because there's a big world to this. There's a big world. It's a feature, not a bug. I liked it. I wouldn't say that out of everything I read this week, this is my pick of the week, but this is a very strong week for comics, to be clear. I have not been reading the Power Fantasy. I'll have to catch up on that on trades because I've heard good things about that. Book 2 is already confirmed for Bug Wars. I didn't hear anything about that. I'll have to look into that. There's some different ways they could go, because they really only use about 5 to 6 types of bugs in this that are important. But there's obviously a lot more than that out there in the world. I thought this was such a cool issue of the Ultimates. We're 15 issues in, and technically the big bad of the Ultimates world is coming soon, so the team of the Ultimates is trying to get ready to oppose it, but we're still meeting important characters. In this one, we deal with both Iron Fist and Shang-Chi, or as he's known in this Ultimate universe, Shen-Chi. And this version of Shang-Chi, sure, he was a great fighter. He united like the various supernatural worlds, that he exists within. He's also, just to be clear, said to be the 8th wielder of the Iron Fist power. So it merges together Shang-Chi and Iron Fist, which I think actually makes a lot of sense. But this takes place apparently well in the past, and he begins meditating. He wakes up 40 years later, shades of stories from like the Buddha, and he tries to just work on healing the world. From there, we jump forward to the present, and the Ultimates have heard rumors that he or his people are still around. So they're like investigating, and they come up against one of Hulk's wielders of the Iron Fist power. There's a great battle and stuff, but there's some really interesting lore that they drop with Iron Fist and how Iron Fist fits into this world. Danny Rand is in this. all sorts of characters. It's a guest artist. What was the last name of the artist? Or the last name is Randall. Does it say in the back? It was a good artist. I like Juan Frigeri quite a bit on this title, so I miss when the regular artist isn't there. But this is a good Von Randall. I'm not familiar with Von Randall, but good artist. Good artist. Some really cool moments with characters like Ant-Man and She-Hulk in this book too. Really cool stuff. This is my favorite of the Ultimate books. It goes for me, the Ultimates, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Spider-Man, and then I'm done. This was easily the funniest book I read this week. Maybe there's not a lot of competition for it. It's also one of the most energetically illustrated issues that I read this week. Great sort of homage cover without referencing anything directly, but like an homage to the George Perez cover to Wonder Woman #1 following Crisis on Infinite Earths. All you need to know is that Trinity is the daughter of Wonder Woman. And in this, there are 3 versions of Trinity: toddler, teen, early teen maybe, and late teen version of Lizzie, also known as Trinity. And they have to recover their friends who have been turned into corgis and thrown throughout time. So each one of them goes on an adventure throughout time. And this is the oldest Lizzie's adventure, trying to save a corgi as well as her mother from Cerebus, the 3-headed dog. And she does a terrible job at it and has to keep going back in time to get it right. But look at like the expressions that Belen Ortega does. This is so fun. I laugh out loud at this book. The gesture that Belen captures is gorgeous. Everything feels very animated, and I mean that in the best positive sense. There's such an intention to every character movement. If somebody is pausing, they even look like they've got like, an energy around them. But like when there's movement, everything is in that movement, and it's just great. These two lecturing older Lizzie, like teen Lizzie and toddler Lizzie, lecturing almost adult Lizzie. She also gets to meet her, if not biological, at least spiritual father, Steve Trevor. And it talks about like how she reacts to getting to know her father that she doesn't know. Lizzie has grown up without Steve Trevor. But this is a time travel story, so you get to do all sorts of fun stuff. Great artwork, funny. Boy, is this a fun comic. Cerberus. I probably mispronounced that because I was thinking of Cerebus. Did I say Cerebus? Because I definitely meant Cerberus, but I probably said it wrong. Dude, this art is fantastic. It's so impactful in its own way. Is it manga inspired? Yeah, but it's its own thing. This is like so consistent that I recognize this is definitely the same character. But also, look at that variety of expressions from top to bottom, right? So many artists, sometimes you can't tell the characters apart unless you look at like their hairstyle or they're wearing glasses or something. And sometimes they've got like you can't necessarily even tell from one panel to the next if this is supposed to be the same person, depending on if you can't tell what they're wearing or something like that. But I can always tell that this is the same person, just with a variety of expressions. There's a lot that I'm impressed about with this artist. There really is. I really enjoy this. The last book I'll talk about this week, I probably won't go into a tremendous amount, but Ryan North and Humberto Ramos's Fantastic Four issue 2, although it's really just continuing the run that Ryan North has been doing for over 2 years. 3 years now? 3 years. Involves the Fantastic Four being thrown throughout time by Doctor Doom and trying to find a way to reunite. And what that amounts to is that they have to use their powers in very clever ways and use their smarts, which just speaks to the fact that they care about each other like a family and they are smart. They're scientists. But the amount of sacrifice in this, Reed Richards is in the medieval times, and he has to think of a way to make sure that whoever is flung into the far, far future could find something. So he spends forever just stretching himself as thin as possible down into the very roots of the earth and moving over like an incalculable amount of time. He moves parts of the earth so that there are like basically diamonds pointing as arrows, and therefore in the future Sue can turn some of the earth invisible and find like the diamonds and know where to go. Like she knows that like Reed would have thought of some way for her to use her powers to figure out where to go. That's how much she trusts him. I'm just saying that this is a book that does really clever stuff with powers and science. It also has a Doctor Doom that's tremendously dangerous to them. It's so fun. I know it feels counterintuitive, like that Reed stretching himself all gross and stuff would be him at the most fun. But this is just an awesome idea. It shows his love for Sue and his love for his family. He just spends ages and ages doing this, like that's very painful and time consuming to set up a solution for the future. And then fortunately, like Sue comes back before he's done all of this, like to the point where he just had the idea, but he's still willing to, and he did do this in one version of reality. I love it. So this is really hard, actually. When there's a week where I liked everything I read, I can't easily just go like, well, it's not going to be this or it's not going to be that. Like, what do I say? If you could only afford to buy one book this week, which would it be? That's so hard for me to say. That's so hard because there's a few different genres here, right? There's superhero, there's more supernatural adventure, certainly more of a sci-fi. That one's sci-fi. There was crime. Crime is represented. A couple different genres. I like a mix of stuff. I think, and it's not easy for me to pick this, but I think I'll pick this book as my book of the week. Superman, the Kryptonite Spectrum. Some of that is because by virtue of the fact that it's a black label title, you don't have to read anything else to enjoy this in and of itself. And it focuses on an aspect of Superman that hasn't been focused on a lot in the last few decades, but is definitely a part of the character. So I think I'll pick this as my overall book of the week, but I literally don't have any of these books this week where I would say, I can't recommend this or I didn't enjoy this. I enjoyed them on different levels. And I mean, I don't think it would do anybody any benefit for me to prioritize them per se, but I did enjoy everything I read this week. I enjoyed every single time I was sitting down and reading the comic. I was pleasantly surprised by where it went, which is lovely in its own way. So those were what I picked up, but I am curious. Did I miss anything? What did you folks pick up? I don't really budget myself for that. I feel I could probably theoretically buy even more, but I know that I'd be disappointed by some of it. I'm trying to pick up stuff that I enjoy primarily, and then a few things that are connected maybe to an event or a big artist that might be worth talking about on this show. But there's always going to be some that I miss, and especially with how diverse Image Comics is, with a really big pool of talents doing a lot of different types of stories. I feel like I do miss certain things there. Yeah, as long as we're just sort of doing an end of stream chat, that's true. Actor Terrence Stamp passed away. I want to say he was 87. Famously played Stick in the Daredevil movie. Of course, we're all most aware with him from his connection to Superman because on Smallville, he voiced Jor-El. No, obviously most people think of him from comics for General Zod, a great portrayal in Superman 1 and 2. But he did obviously have some other comic book roles that he played and was honestly just a fantastic actor in general. Definitely a loss. Definitely a loss. I loved that stuff as a kid, so I totally get the enjoyment of History of DC Universe. Totally get it. Supergirl 4 was fun. I've heard that there's a fantastic team on that. I thought Fantastic Four #2 came out this week. I picked it up this week. I could have sworn that it came out this week. Oh, yeah. The Limey is definitely one of his better roles. Like, really good. Oh, yep. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, he's really good in. Yep. He was in the Fellini segment of Spirits of the Dead. That I haven't seen. I should. What Godzilla? Oh, this is one that I got years ago at the actual Godzilla store in Tokyo. And it just has Godzilla destroying the store. This was around the time Shin Godzilla was new. And now Shin Godzilla is out in theaters again. Came out the 13th? Fantastic Four number... This book did? Don't know how I missed that. Have you thought about doing a video on Marvel's The 12? I touch on it in one episode where I talk about the original Black Widow. Wait, was it Black Widow? It's some Golden Age Marvel hero, and she was powered by the devil. I think that was her name. Oh, cool. I obviously was a big fan, especially of the Jesse Lonergan comic and the one by... what was the other one that I really liked? Now I'm sort of blanking, and I don't have it next to me. Well, I liked all four, really. So I don't know. It was the original Black Widow? Yeah, so I made a video about that, and I touched on the 12 a little. Chrissy with a K, but yeah, my wife's name is Chrissy. I'm Chris. My stepdad is a Chris. My stepbrother is Chris. His son is Chris. My step-grandfather is still alive. He's Chris. So there's a lot of Chris's in my family. Would I make one about Wonder Man? Maybe. Here's the trick for me. I really liked the Wonder Man comic in the 90s by artist Jeff Johnson. I think he's tremendously underrated. But I don't think I could talk about that run anymore because, of course, the writer is pretty famous for being... I don't even know how I can talk about it on YouTube without getting demonetized. He went to jail for something bad. But maybe. Henry Cavill as Zod could be fun, but I think he should get something even more substantial. Yeah, so no interview this week, and I don't really have anything that I had in mind to draw, so I'll probably wrap it up in a little bit. I'm trying to think, but I would love it if any of you were willing to check out the latest Comic Tropes. It's a look at a manga, which maybe is part of the reason that it didn't get pushed to everybody, because I don't do manga every week. But to me, it's all comics. I am proud of the essay. I think I set up everything you need to know in my argument, because it's ultimately about story structure, is what I talk about. A 10-year run and what it did story structure-wise that I have issues with. So I encourage you to check it out. I should have an episode out, I think, this weekend. I'm hard at work on that, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, we talked about it. We talked about it tonight. I talked about Valiant, yes. I don't know what to say, folks. I've been going for 2 hours. I definitely talked about these things. I'll go back as soon as I end this, to be clear, and I'll add chapters. I always do that for this show, so that you can jump back and... sorry, there's a bug flying. So that you can jump to whatever interests you. Um, mm, mm, mm. What if Ultraman did end up being Cavill? Yeah, what if? I did decide to talk about comics a little bit tonight. A little bit. Yeah, that was kind of a last minute thing. I did interview Daniel Warren Johnson. We were talking very specifically, it was a focused interview about his art book, which I think is still interesting if you're a fan of Daniel Warren Johnson. But to be clear, the Kickstarter campaign for getting that book did already end. So if you were like looking for that aspect of it, just to be clear, the Kickstarter's over. But instead, we talk more about how you choose art and what you want out of an art book, things like that. Yeah. You missed just a little. No, it's all about comics. Do I have anything else that I want to say? I've got some ideas for Jim and I to do more trash movie bonanza. There is an episode about Friday the 13th, the original, on this channel that I think was fun to talk about. And weird timing. Also this past week, there was a Jason Voorhees short film released on YouTube that was funded by Angry Orchard Hard Cider. I didn't see that coming. Oh, yeah. Hey, a little late because I had been driving. But thank you for the review on Blood and Thunder. EJ, I didn't see any of this coming. You know, standalone story setting up new elements. Great art. You know, love you, man. Really, really cool. Drive safe. Don't watch my show while driving. That's always been my hard and fast rule. That's been my only rule. You want to do meth while watching this show? I don't have a problem with that. You want to drive while you watch my show? No. I say no. That is my line, and I have drawn it. I've illustrated it, and I will not let you get past that. There's some great characters in there. Exo Man of War is one of their better characters. They've got a lot of great characters. That cider is a little too sweet for me, but good. Just weird, though, that like this semi-official Jason Voorhees short film would come out the same week that Jim and I decide to review the movie. You know what I almost pitched him on, but it has looked like it's come and gone out of theaters in less than a week, was maybe we should look at the original Red Sonja, because the new Red Sonja hit theaters this past weekend. Did any of you go see Red Sonja? I was working, so it wasn't an option. I literally looked to see if it was still playing at the theater that's near me, and it's not. So it must have been a very small window, I guess. I don't know. I can't have that stuff, though, Steve. Like the sugars and the carbs that are in there, it's just I can't. I maybe could have a sip just to say, like, yeah, you know, like that's a good taste or something, but I can't. Oh, I'm absolutely I'm absolutely going to check it out. If it's anything Friday the 13th, I'm going to at least check it out. Oh, enjoy. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I would like to see Fantastic Four again. That's an interesting idea, looking at the original Toxic Avenger. Maybe. Depends on what people want. How do you manage a work-life balance between your day job and YouTube? Been feeling burned out lately and at a loss on how to balance my life. I don't have a good solution for that, man. The fact is, I work every day and have for a very long time, and I am always kind of close to burnout, which isn't good. It isn't healthy. Over the years, I've let my health slip, which isn't good. And yeah, I wish I could cut out some of the amount of work that I do. But I'm old, right? So what I do is I go like, well, would I be happy if I cut out one of my jobs? No, I don't think I would. So I know what I'd lose. And so that's sort of what keeps me going. But it's not a great solution. And to like add time for like socializing or spending time with your family or your wife, it's really, really hard. I think if you're going to try to do YouTube, you sort of have to either have a support network that can sort of like help keep you fed and clean and stuff like that at home, or be earning enough money from it that you can keep it going. It's really hard. That's a super challenging question. I don't have a good solution. We all love and appreciate you and your vids. I feel that. I totally feel that. And I appreciate you for that. I enjoy doing this. That's what keeps me going. Is I go, yeah, it's tough, it's work, but I enjoy doing it. Oh yeah, I checked out Alien Earth with Chrissy, and we enjoyed it. I don't have time for lots of TV and films, but I do allow myself usually. I see movies a good amount, like usually I can see one a week. I didn't this past week, but I usually see like one a week. And then I'll choose these days a show typically that Chrissy can also enjoy, so that's something we can do together. I do freelance video work, so I feel you there. Thank you for taking the time. Yeah, of course. Jim and Jamie too. I missed what that's in reference to, but they're both great. They're both great. I guess there's not much else to discuss. Maybe next week I'll think of something to draw and I can ramble on a little bit more about what TV and films are out there. That would be fun. But yeah, I'll keep it done here. If you want more comic book stuff, Bronze Age Nerds show starts in about an hour. That's pretty good. And I'll be watching. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you, John. Last second appreciation post. Hey, you got it in time. Thank you very much. Wow. Here's to Brigitte Nielsen. Okay, so there's some last minute support. Thank you very, very much, both of you. Noted about Bridget. It's an idea. We'll see. All right, folks. I had a great time tonight. Until I see you next time, I will tell you to keep reading comics. And I'll encourage you to check out Comic Tropes. I'll have an episode up there this weekend with any luck. Thanks, everybody. Bye.